Hello, Will Greenwood.
Love it.
Is it a delivery? Yeah, yeah. If it fits in the post box, stick it in the post box. Appreciate it, boss. Ta-da.
3, 2, 1. Will Greenwood, thank you so much for taking the time to join the Rugby Bricks podcast. I know it's a busy time, especially when you've got kids. So welcome. Thanks for taking the time.
No, no, my pleasure. Looking forward to chewing the fat, talking rugby, see what's going on, enjoying what's coming from your part of the world at the moment. Great to see. And I apologise to all your Kiwi listeners. Aotearoa?
Yes, close.
Was that close enough?
Aotearoa, yeah. That's
Aotearoa,
yeah.
Aotearoa. But no, it's cracking at the weekend, and the Sky Plus is set for Sunday. I get up and watch the Saturday one because that's an 8 o'clock kickoff. But I love rugby, but 4:30 in the morning would not go down well in this house. I've got 3 dogs, 3 children. Yeah, if I wake the kids up and the dogs, the missus goes mental. So the 4:31 has to wait for about 9 o'clock in the morning, cook the kids some breakfast and watch it in the background.
It definitely was a place I wanted to go. What did you think of the Super Rugby games you seen over the weekend? Obviously for New Zealand, the crowds, it was a magic start. Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, so look, the Premier League starts. It's restart day, and the date today I know is Wednesday the 17th of June. I know people listen to podcasts at different time, but just to sort of contextualise what we're talking about, it's Premier League restart tonight. So to Aston Villa, Sheffield United, and Man City, Arsenal. I mean, massive games, relegation, top of the table, Champions League, but no crowds. 300 people allowed into the stadium, all sorts of face masks and signs and temperatures being taken. But all the games are being broadcast live. All 92 remaining fixtures are going out there. So it's a huge 5-6 week period. But we are totally jealous because we realise that part of Premier League, part of football, part of the whole Saturday protocol or the Wednesday night, is you go with family, you arrive, you go through the turnstiles, you have a pie, you have a beer, you celebrate, you watch your team win, and then you realise VAR rules it out, and you've got your head in your hands, and it's that whole, the chants and the crowd. That's part of it. So clearly we love sport, but part of sport is the whole package.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet. We'll hope when we'll catch up with you to watch and to see. Certainly Eden Park so full. It was really special. So well done to your wonderful, awesome Prime Minister, who is a cult hero. In our family, is it Mrs. Ahern?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I'm a school teacher, so I know I need to be careful whether it's Mrs. or Miss, but I think it's Mrs. Ahern. She's a hero in this house for how she went early. Your government went early. Your people adapted to the situation. Anyway, we're not here necessarily to talk about COVID, but it puts into it just frames how well you've done and how amazing it is to have proper sport with proper crowds. In terms of the rugby, I get the trials and I get the application of the laws, the breakdown. So certainly on game 1, it was pretty hot. Perhaps the refs had a chat just before game 2. I don't know if there was the same amount of pens, but there was an extraordinary amount of pens in the first one. But if that's what they're going for, then you don't blame the guy with the whistle. Just to have a look at how you're refereeing that. But it was, and I'm a big fan of attack, and I understand powers of defences. It just felt, and I'm very careful to dive into. I've got to go with what my opinion is, and some stats guru will tell me I'm slightly wrong. It felt like it just loaded the die in the defensive favour, and more penalties seem to go in that direction, and that's. Clearly, we want a game that's sped up, but we also like a game that rewards the encouragement to play and not have the fear of playing because of the odds stacked in your face against you to concede a penalty with the ball. Look, as always, I've gone in far too technical here. The overriding issue point was for me was some incredible athleticism. So some awesome young players. And I did have my notes for the pod I did yesterday, and I've not misplaced the teams, but I think on the Sunday, Sotutu, Hoskins Sotutu,
yep,
massive. That the Highlanders 8, I loved. Another young kid who looked lethal. Enjoyed Frizzell. I loved the 12 for the Highlanders. Ran some great lines. Obviously, Gatland comes on, drops it. I was the Sunday. There were a few more names that were slightly more recognisable. I don't think I played against his dad. I don't think I played against Ironi, but Caleb Clark.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, how easy is rugby if you're 110 kilos and you run the 109.4? I mean, it's just a ridiculous game. I loved Rico at 13. I thought, is it O'Hare or Terry Black at 10?
O'Terry,
yeah. Composed, nice. And then Tiatia, Chase Tiatia. I don't want to get, here I go again, drawn into individuals. I haven't got my notes with me, but it was just, again, it just seems like a conveyor belt of athletic, dynamic, skillful players who are are on the cusp of launching their all-black careers. And Ian Foster will have a really tough job to try and wheedle out the ones from so much choice that hopefully will make the trip north in November, because I think it's the first weekend in November.
Yeah.
You're due to play England. And with COVID, I'll tell you, with the amount of sport we want, the amount of rugby we've missed, they could fill Twickenham. I mean, Twickenham's 85,000. We would sell that. We'd sell 500,000 tickets for that.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
No problem. I mean, no problem to see you boys.
You're absolutely right about the conveyor belt of players and positions, and the depth is crazy watching those two games. And Caleb Clark, you're right. Like, some of the pictures that have come out of him running down the wing and his quads are just phenomenal. And going back to the experience that they created, a lot of the noise that's come out is from people that went to the game and the stuff you don't see on TV. So I think they nailed the game day experience and kind of put some emphasis on that, which was really exciting. I want to go into some stuff about your time in New Zealand as a player. And I watched today you score a crossfield kick try in Dunedin for the Lions, and then decided to start a fight with these.
No, whoa. Look at me. There's an old comedy character, unfortunately passed away. The Chuckle Brothers. And I've always wanted to grow tash because my dad had an amazing tash in the 70s and 80s, and it's a miserable effort. So I look a little bit like Barry Chuckle, or the other nicknames I had were, there's a cartoon character, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Yep.
I had his nickname for years, and Rodney Trotter from Only Fools and Horses, sort of Nicholas Lyndhurst lookalike. When you got a nose and a chin and ears like this, I'm 30 seconds away from a new nickname. I've spent my whole life just accumulating them. So I don't pick fights. I never have picked fights. But as far as I remember it, and I hope you don't then pull up the video and show me actually starting the fight. I seem to remember scoring. I think it was Aled Bruce, a top lad, who came and played at Bristol.
Yep, Neil Bruce.
Neil Bruce. Sorry, Aled Bruce, the winger in Wales. Sorry, Neil Bruce. Neil played in the centre, and in the same game, the other centre came. Mapasua came and played for London Irish. So it's Brew and Mapasua. Although I hasten to add, Maps wasn't anywhere near it. And you know when you score, and someone just lands on you afterwards, and you look in hindsight and you go, benefit of doubt, he wasn't doing anything. But you tend to feel that once you score, if someone drops on you, there's an element of, well, the referee never pings this. I'll just drop a shoulder.
Yeah.
And because the refs, they'll be happy they've scored a try. We don't need to give them a penalty from the halfway line. It's so rare it happens. And I sort of took umbrage. And I also, I grew up in an era where, in the old days, when I first started playing senior rugby in sort of 89, 90, if you postured and started a scrap, you'd get clocked. I mean, you'd get lamped. You sort of realise in a Lions tour that if you grip, grapple, hold tight,
Yeah,
and
stay
don't
close.
actually swing, they're not going to punch you
Yeah.
back. And so there's
And
also, I know Andrew Merton's talked about this a lot, sort of joining fights, knowing that it would take somebody particularly daft to smash you in the face
Yeah.
because they'd get an 8-week ban. I think it ended up with, I was saved. I think Neil was about to pin me to the floor and beat the living bejesus out of me, but luckily you can't hit me. So anyway, that was my paltry effort to scrap in the House of Pain.
I love it. Where I was, yeah, the House of Pain, absolutely. So I guess where I was going with that, like playing in New Zealand, watching New Zealand rugby as a player, was there stuff and guys you learnt from that you tried to take into your game from New Zealand styles and players?
So much. When I first started watching the Super Rugby stuff, I was watching as a fan because I was sort of playing for Harlequins and I was a skinny beanpole, and the thought of international rugby was just a different planet. So I watched it and was like, wow, look at that. I mean, I still remember Jolie Vindiri's pickup up the left-hand side, one-handed. It's one of the great clips, and to see Zinni and the Blues early on, with which Aroni was a big part of, to see those teams playing, I used to love it and watch it. And if I could get hold of the tapes or find a way to watch it, I'd watch it. I sort of had to stop watching it a little bit when I started playing against them because I realised that, oh my God, we'll never beat these guys. And I had to not let that complete doubt appear in any team meeting. If you're in a room with Johnson, Dallaglio, Richard Hill, Phil Vickery,
yeah,
you can't go, wow, these guys are awesome. Have you seen Tanner? Look at that guy. He's amazing. They'd smash you in the face and go, no, we're going to beat him. We're going to beat him. Yeah. So I sort of had to temper my fanboy because I go back. I started as a fan.
Yeah.
Started as a fan. I'm back as a fan.
Yeah.
Just happened to be a sort of 10-year period in the middle where I got to play against people that I happen to be fans of. But I respect athleticism. I respect different skill sets, different body shapes contributing so wonderfully to one of the perfect analogies for team sport, which is rugby.
Was there any skill set stuff that you took from a player or tried to mimic?
So, I mean, I used to try and practice the Cullen's outside arc.
Yeah.
The one person who could do it, and I get shouted at for this, but I'm telling you, he could do it for a year, but then injuries really hurt him. I'm trying to think. He didn't play. Was he on the bench in 2003 when we won in Wales? I don't know if the Kiwis really ever saw him at his best.
Yeah.
A guy called Ian Bolshaw.
Right.
He was unplayable in the season of 2001. But if I remember, we didn't play the All Blacks. Right. I mean, it was just, and the reason, and Cullen's longevity. But I look at my second test I played, and the back three was Lomu, Wilson, Cullen. And I'm going, what am I doing out here? So there's that ability to glide and just feign in on the out and go away from a runner. Skill set wise, it was the offloading and the ability to control the ball in contact and shift the point of attack. Because it just seemed, look, if I really generalise here, such enormous physicality naturally from All Black players that my view was they didn't have to spend that much time in the gym, so they could focus on playing. And we had some guys who came up, and I know that Vunivaca and Serevi. I know they're not All Blacks, but they're sort of, they have that physicality. They never did a weight in their life. They were just out practicing. Wizard was just doing his skills the whole time.
Yeah.
Whereas Montgomery Burns here and people like me who were brought up on pot noodles in Blackburn, I had to spend 6 months of the year trying to physically survive, taking away time to be able to. So it's a huge generalisation, but so much more comfort because the athleticism came so naturally.
Yes.
That it wasn't a prerequisite to get a little bit fitter, whereas we had to get so much fitter. We spent so much time. I think that's one of the things that's closed the gap in the Northern and Southern Hemisphere.
Yep.
Is now that the kids up here are physically able to cope earlier because of the training patterns and the training programs and the professionalism and into the academies at 13, 14.
Yes.
That actually, when they get older, they don't have to spend time lumping steel around.
Yep.
They can get out and do the stuff that you've been doing since year dot. So, look, I'm not trying to be too vague about the particular players I watched, because you also have to remember there was no sort of Sky, there was no Super Rugby on the TV. You didn't adapt your kickoff times to suit us in those days. It was early on picking it up and watching it from that perspective. So,
I want to loop around back to rugby later on, but I want to talk about your media world, and I guess that's where I first come across yourself and started to understand who you were, because I think you do it differently, and I'm interested to sort of see if you're building the skill set around it. So I guess, what was your first opportunity to grab the microphone, if you can remember?
So look, my mum and dad are both teachers. They're both great communicators. My dad coached England in the 80s.
Yep.
He actually coached England to beat the All Blacks at Twickenham in 83. It's his first game. They won 15-9, and he says to me, should have just walked straight out of the change room, jumped on a horse and rode out of town, because it was only going to get worse after that. And 2 years later, he was sacked. But massive communicator. They call him the Riddler because he speaks in riddles. I sort of picked that up over the years. And my mum was a maths teacher for 38 years. So breaking down big goals into small chunks, going at them one step at a time, marginal gains way before David Brailsford and Team Sky and Clive and 100 Things 1% Better, and you'll have your guys and girls who were the pioneers on that. I was brought up in a household of communicating, of sort of coaching on the go, of being a commentator out on the field whilst you're playing for those around you, therefore giving as much information to the people on your left and right so that they then see what they see, but they're also picking up other little bits, and slowly but surely the quality of your listening to the tones that you're hearing, you're picking up information that's important to you, that's relevant to you, and you can drown and almost like you've got a fade system, like a music producer. You can fade people out that you don't need to hear, and you're picking up people that you need to listen to, and you're prioritizing. A lot of that came from trading. I was a futures trader on the life floor, so I did an economics degree, and I went to work for HSBC. Now, the best way I can describe it without overcomplicating it, but also not talking to your listeners as though they're 8 years old, but I pick up these acronyms from the kids I teach now. One of them is ELI 5, and it's explain it like I'm 5. So that's one of the things. Keep it simple. If you've seen trading places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, they're trading pork bellies and orange juice futures, and basically they wear funny coloured jackets at the end, orange jackets, and they're on a floor and they're in a pit and they're screaming and shouting and trading. So I did that, but with interest rates. So I was an interest rate trader. I was in a pit. And I was doing Italian rates, Swissy rates, Euromark, the gilt, the bond, all these sorts of things, which I don't want to overcomplicate. It wasn't as complicated as it sounds. But basically, you're taking orders. And if the Bundesbank, the German central bank cut rates on a Thursday, they'd always announce 12 o'clock on a Thursday, right? And everything's factored into markets, and it's surprised that markets don't like. If they cut rates or raise rates unexpectedly, you add 3,500 people in an area probably the size of, say, 4 tennis courts, with all the traders all around the world trying to ring you with lights flashing to get their orders in, to ship, because it's their dough and it's their bonuses and it's all on the line. Wow. And you have to try and understand, which lights have I got to go to first? Who are the key clients? Who am I going to operate with? Pick up the phone, noise. I need to get this trade. Do not sell when he wants to buy. Repeat the order back to them. Stamp the ticket. Underneath, write the ticket out. However much you want to rush this trade, get your basics right. Get set early. Bang. Now signal it in. Okay, now I'm going to sell 100 at one. That's the old 100, 10, 20, 30. Then you go 60, 70. That's 1, 2, 6. You go to thousands on the side of the arm, and you're in there. That's selling. That's buying. So the hand away from you. So all these little things that if you walked into the pit, you go, they're all doing the same thing. Yeah. You know, actually, sort of paying zero for 100 or selling 100 at one. That is, you're like, what the heck has that just done? But those, when you're doing that and in the pit, and to survive that, you've got to have this. Who's going to listen? What's going on? So I promise you, it was the best grounding I had. I'm not going to say rugby-wise, international sport was easy. It was difficult. The communication side, I majored in.
Yes.
That was one of my strengths because of the ability to understand that if you've had to ring your top trader in a bank and tell him you got the trade wrong and you had to do the walk of shame across the floor, there's no feeling like that on a rugby field ever. Yeah. You know, when you lost someone £1 million, yeah, and you got to walk over. I remember Bobby Barnett, the yen trader, I had to go and tell him I got the wrong. I thought he'd put a couple of signals out in the market, which was a bluff, before he then went in with a £1 billion trade in '94 with HSBC, the whole trade. And I picked up the first trade and assumed the whole trade. But he was putting a feeler out into the market to bluff the market, who then ramped their prices up and he'd then sell. I thought he was buying, so I bought, and anyway. I'm really digressing here, but the point I'm trying to get across is I had this amazing grounding of 2 incredible parents who over communicated the whole time. Talk. What are you seeing in this maths problem? What is it? Okay, don't think about it. You can't do it. What can you see? It's an indices question. Okay, what do you know about indices? If you multiply them, you add the powers. If you're dividing, you take away the powers. Are the inside brackets? Then you multiply the powers. Okay. Don't panic. Can you break it down? Can you split it down? It's 27 to the minus 2/3. Do 27 to the third, break it down. That's the power of 3. Minus 2, you drop it underneath the reciprocal. It's 1/3 squared. Bang, you got a 9. Something like that. You know, so this sort of stuff. And I played cards the whole time with my dad, grandma. Everything in my whole life was set up about breaking and thinking and bluffing and counter bluffing, and so that gave me the ability. So the question was, how do I apply that to the first time? It's a long answer, I know. So to working in TV. Well, TV, you have these things in, and what people don't realize is there's 6 or 7 people talking in that ear the whole time.
School experience.
Producer, director, sound guys. You're hearing the program, you're hearing your fellow presenters, you're hearing the main presenter. You might have, say, a Scott Quinnell outside in the crowd with the stadium. You've got them, and they're supposed to be constantly lowered by the sound technician. But the sound technician are working on 30, 40 people or whatever. So sometimes you get everything in your ear, and you're only supposed to be having one person in your ear. And that's when you got to sort of breathe. What am I listening to? So I had a real advantage having had that background. The next thing I just apply is I just try to. I've been in pubs talking rugby with my dad since I was 12, man. I mean, I was obviously on orange juice to begin with, but he took me down the rugby club, and I remember having my first pint trained with the senior squad at Preston when I was 14, and you're in the big bath when, before health and safety.
Yeah.
All rugby clubs had massive baths. There'd be 30
right.
grown-up blokes in a bath, and someone would give me a pint after training. I'd done the 100, the 800, 5 400s, and an 800 session with 4 minutes break. And this little 14-year-old scamp, I turned him over on the third or fourth 400. The bits has always been talking rugby. So how I've tried to do is, this is not the freaking Syrian peace crisis. This is a game of footy. It's a game of rugby. The second thing, you're not going to please everyone, right? So then you work around and you start putting all these things in the pot, and you then rewind and go, what's my philosophy on all this? Is Mark Twain has a great quote: if you only tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.
Yes, I love it.
And when you first start out, you start trying to be everyone's mate, and you're like a little bit worried, but then you forget, did I say something nice about him last week or not? Really, I don't think he's playing that well, and I know why he's not playing that well. But initially you start off with, no, it's great, and you get tired of it. So I then apply that sort of tell the truth as if you're having a beer, the great truth series, or imagine you've had a beer. Imagine you're at the bar. The next thing I try and apply is my mum had been brought up. My granddad was a footballer, but she then married into a rugby family with my dad. And she saw my dad get dropped as England captain, dropped out of the England team, picked as England coach, sacked as England coach. I was picked, dropped, injuries. People write things about you. And as a player or as a coach, you can cope with that. It's fine. What really hurts is really aggressive, unnecessary. And the term now would be clickbait.
Yep.
Where people say things because it makes a good headline and they know they'll get a few likes and that sort of stuff. So I apply the mum test to everything. And would I say what I'm about to say about a player or a coach if their mum was sat next to me? Right. And if I'm going to say it, I need to explain it to their mum or their partner. Why I'm saying he shouldn't be in the England team.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to justify rather than he's rubbish. He shouldn't be in the team. No, the reason he's not playing that well at the moment is he's lost complete confidence in going to the line. He's 2 meters further back. When he's playing at his best, he's literally nose to nose with his opposite man. He's looking at outside shoulders, he's taking people on, his body weight is leant forward. He's in an aggressive position and he wants the ball. Right now, he's back on his heels. To apply it to any sport. It's like he's getting chin music at cricket and he's backing away at a leg stump. He's golfing, he's worried, he's opening his left shoulder because he's looking up to see where it's gone. So in all sports, you have the ability to translate, the technical side of what's going into an argument and a discussion with people. The hard bit in TV is you get like 15 seconds to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna go into those 15 seconds and throw something out there if I haven't got the time to justify it. And if I haven't got the time to justify it, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to sit on it. I'm going to wait until I have, or I'm going to write about it in the Telegraph.
Yeah.
Because it's nasty. And it affects people's lives and it affects people's families. And find me a professional sportsman who's not trying to be good, not trying to play well. Very rarely in pro sport now, you break it down into skill errors and effort errors. The skill errors, that's the coach's fault. The coach has got to help him out. The effort errors, there used to be a lot. As time's gone on and video analysis, and maybe they've been forced into not having effort errors, but you've been watching. Most kids are trying to get back off their feet and make the next tackle.
Yeah.
I misread it under pressure because the heart rate's 200. I know Terry Black's just put in a floating ball, and you think I can make that intercept, and I don't know who the right wing who can. I can make that intercept, and Rico just attacks the ball, gets on his inside, bounces out, gets out to the outside, drops it to Clark, who steps off his left and scores under the post. Now, if you look back at that defensive system, you could go, "Oh, what are you doing?" But they played up the right-hand side. They were playing with pace, the Blues. They were moving the ball. Suddenly, you disconnect to the gains comes, and people who know how to defend and know how to get back in a three and know how to work together suddenly break off and do different things. Now, I can tell a mum why that's a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, oh, my God, what's the right winger doing?
Yes.
I want to go, you got to go back to the life floor. Bang. Why? I know what selling 100 at 1 is. Why have I sold 1 at 100?
Yeah.
Why have I got the numbers wrong way around? Because I'm fried. My brain is fried. So I give players and coaches benefit of doubt.
I love it.
I try and say what I see and tell the truth, but I try to use constructive feedback
with the
critique.
I want to jump in and ask you about your work ethic and preparation, and probably a little bit back to when you're in the pit trading. What is your process for how much work that you put into actually nailing and explaining that 15 seconds really well, or when you can digress?
Yeah.
Or are you able to back your eye a little bit?
So a couple of things here. On Saturdays, I write for the newspaper for a Saturday as well, Daily Telegraph. So I have a blank sheet of paper, and I tend to write about the games in advance that I'm going to commentate on or be at. It's a blank sheet of paper on a Monday. I'll go back to research in a minute. I've got to find a theme, a topic, 2 or 3 players. What's going to swing this game? And I think in ink. It's actually typing, but the old-fashioned. I think in ink. So I write it all down. I start with about 3,500 words. I model it, I craft it, I tweak it, I change it. I come to it. I understand. I've only got 1,000 words in the paper. That 200 words has got to get to 50. Therefore, I've got to use 4 words instead of 20. And that's why podcasts are a killer, because I use 40 when I could have used 10. it's my one time. So I craft all these words. So then when I get to Saturday, I'm almost using all the work I've done all week to be able to articulate it. And therefore, it's super strong on research, in my opinion, and in terms of what I've seen. It's really well backed up. It's really well evidenced. And I have that ability to get it into 15 seconds because I've had to get it into 40 words. Yeah, so that's how the Saturday worked. But in order for that to happen, I've written, and by the way, I'm not trying to blow a trumpet here, but you've asked me my prep stuff. I've written 1.5 million words for the Telegraph. In the old days, I had an article, I was a ghost. Most players have a ghosted article. They speak to a journalist. Journalist turns the interview into words. People think the player's written it.
Yep.
I was fed up because I was opening the paper on a Monday, and that's not the words I've written in. So I spoke to my agent every week. I said, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. My agent, in the end, who's a mate of mine, ran me up and said, I'm so bored of this conversation every Monday. They're paying you X. Here are your options. I rip it up, and I go and find you another newspaper, and you write your own because I'm bored of this conversation.
Yeah.
Or you suck it up. Don't give a monkeys. It's chip paper a week later. Take the money. So, I'm not going to lie, year 1, I took the money. I thought, okay. By the end of year 1, I thought, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So I said, find me a newspaper that will allow me to write. So I started writing my own, put my money where my mouth is. So then what was coming out, I was completely liable for every single word in the paper. They were my words. So that was one of the big issues. That's why I ended up getting into writing. But the point of that conversation is, if you've written 1.5 million words and it's about footy, there's only so many different ways you can describe a tackle or a run. So you got to find themes. You got to talk. You got to see things that others aren't watching. And one of the benefits of working with Sky is I get access to every game on the planet, literally through Opta. I can go online now and I can call up everything. I can find everything that's happening. So I'm not going to lie to you and say I watch every single Super Rugby. I tend to watch the highlights of Super Rugby because that's not my week in, week out job. I'm not commenting on that. I watch a little bit more before you come to the Northern Hemisphere. But occasionally, if you turn on the TV in July, you might go, Greens is being a little bit generic there because I won't have watched the detail that I would prefer to watch. I've been writing on the Premiership for 15 years now. There's 12 teams, whatever. 22 games Each team plays 22 games. You know, they do the numbers. There's an extraordinary number of games each year. 6 games a weekend, basically, for 22 weekends. That's 132 games, right? In 15 years, I may have missed one of those.
Wow.
That I haven't watched from start to finish. Haven't missed an England. Haven't missed a Northern Hemisphere international. Any of the home countries. I watch it with fast forward and I watch it with 10 seconds ahead. But it'd be 13, 14 years since I've not seen any of the home nations games.
This is golden, and I want to carry along these lines and probably be a little bit selfish because it's the world that I'm really excited and obviously doing podcasts, talking to people, talking rugby. And when I asked, are you aware of the skill set? I think the answer is 100,000,000% yes. You're very aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it. I'm wondering if there's a person outside of the rugby realm who you love listening to, how they communicate. I love a few comedians and how they do it and how they storytell. Is there someone for you?
So a couple of things that I've used down the years. So 2 guys I lived with at university. One went on to, he's just stepped down as CEO of one of the best advertising agencies in the world. We're writing a book together in lockdown. We've done 80,000 words. And he's called Benny Fennell, and I call him Benny the Baptist. And he baptised with feedback. He loves his rugby. He was a prop. He was England students. He was at Roslyn Park, which is a tier 2 team. Loves his rugby, and he's on at me. He watches a lot of rugby, and he's straight on the phone. He'll say you're using the word too often, or you've used outstanding 15 times in the first half. Then, sorry, I said start with 2. I'm going to build it out to 4. Then there's another housemate of mine called Benny Richardson who works in PR, but he left uni. He drove long distance lorries, articulated lorries around Eastern Europe, held up at gunpoint, spent time in Russia, lived in India. He's a traveller. He's ended up a traveller as in wants to get a passport, go experience different parts of the world. He's in financial PR now, working in Hong Kong. He's the greatest wordsmith I've ever known, and he's just an old mate of mine. I'll send him a lot of ideas, and he'll tweak it, and he'll flip the order, and he'll go, your opening's too loose, tighten it. Finish is all right. Give me it. What's your killer line?
Wow.
I'll have that. I'll have my dad who'll watch every broadcast I ever do, who will text me mid-broadcast, mid-commentary, and go, did you pick up what the 7 did at the last breakdown? Because he was an England international back row. I'll have my phone on whilst I'm broadcasting, and we'll speak. We'll do a debrief after the game, and he'll go, you over-focused on, I can tell he's your mate because you gave him, you over-stressed, you over-egged his importance in a game where I thought he was okay. And why were you picking on him? What's the backstory? And I might tell him the backstory, and I might go, well, he blanked me in an interview 4 weeks ago. So no, I go against it. But my point is, there's a reason. There's an unconscious bias. Yes. And my dad will call me on all my unconscious biases. And then there's my mum, who reads all my articles and watches me, and he's probably my harshest judge. I couldn't understand what you were saying. You spoke too fast. You got overly technical. Remember your audience. Go back to teaching. It's not a case of, in any way, shape or form, dumbing it down, but there's a way of describing things that maintains the experts, but brings the big eventers who are just turning into rugby for the first time. And they're the ones, you've got to support. There's a time in the pods and in the technical programs that we do that the real rugby anoraks will be there. But for the big events, don't lose the sort of tail of Halley's Comet. Take everyone with you. So those are personal bounce-offs. In terms of the commentary, Martin Tyler, I'm a colour comms, and what that means, that to talk about that is the main comms, and then the person who adds colour is the ex player. So there's the lead commentator and the colour communicator who's sort of, so the black and white of what's happening in the game, and then you're the ex-player, what's happening. So Martin Tyler's been doing that on Sky Football. He's the lead comms, and he's brilliant in his ability to sum up Aguero's goal when that happened against QPR. Drink it in, would you believe it? You know, the words. And so I've watched so much sport. I love the golf down the years, and all the different commentators on that. And my cousin now is doing a lot of the golf. So I'm not naming any names here, but I watched Sid Waddell, who did the darts, who took darts and made darts famous. He was at Cambridge with my dad.
Wow.
He was a history student, but his amazing words. He loved darts, and he transformed darts. And if anyone's not heard of Sid Waddell, immediately Google Sid Waddell. You know, if Elvis walked in here and ordered fish and chips, no one would care. The darts is so I'm getting his quotes wrong. Alexander the Great conquered the known world at 27. Phil the Power Taylor's done it at 24. You know, and he's just he's a Geordie, he's a northeastern, so his accent went with it. So I watched that, and I can't be him. But there's times I wish I could, and it's forced, and I get it. I go, oh no, stop trying to be Sid Waddell. But his passion comes through. So I just, I'm overexcitable at times. If I see a great try, I'm going to jump up and down and say, that's a great try. And not lose my neutrality, but just I'm never going to lose my passion.
Yeah. When it comes to the commentary, and we see you often in the suit, when you put on the suit, do you turn into Will Greenwood, the commentator, that guy you want to be, or is that you full time?
So with the introduction of phones and Twitter and social media, the reality was, I think there was a time when there was a transition. Because now everyone with a phone's a reporter. And I'm not saying I have things to hide, but you're one lazy comment away, or one swear word away from being in trouble. Now, I like to go back to the school teacher thing. I like to think I've been reasonably well brought up, but everyone's nasty sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Okay? Everyone's nasty sometimes. And I have nasty thoughts. People have nasty thoughts about other people. And however much you try and be good, and you can't help it. Things irritate you. But now with phones and that sort of way of life, the reality is, I think we all live in the Truman Show now. Yes. And you very kindly said to me, is it okay if I record this? And that's very kind of you to ask me, right? But I assume the second I go online, or the second I go in public, and by the way, I'm not David Beckham here. I'm not saying I'm being mobbed, but the second I am out I think anyone in a public arena, it's not about not being yourself. It's about understanding who you're with today. What are you talking about? What's the subject? Is there enough fact behind your evidence and your argument to go strong today? Or is this an argument you need to sit on the sidelines and listen and learn from others who are living and breathing what you are talking about? So I'm certainly not trying to be not really the Dalai Lama here.
Yep.
But the question was, am I non-suit guy and suit guy? I think I'm more Mark Twain, truth guy, that perhaps in the old days was a little bit more of an actual change into a suit. Now, with age and experience, and hopefully not losing that passion, that I've sort of morphed and understand that the reality is being true to yourself the whole time is hugely beneficial. You just, some do at 22. Martin Johnson probably understood it at the age of 4. Such was his enormous emotional intelligence. Amazing. Others like me, slightly immature as a youngster, late developer, uni, did everything students shouldn't do, worked in the city. Food was non-existent. Alcohol was the staple diet. It's just everything. So anyway, I'm getting on a high box here that I shouldn't be on. But my point is, to answer your question, I now even when I was training my local rugby club last night, and we're level 5, but I just love being out on the pitch with the guys. But I can't go full time because I love what I'm doing here. And if I became a full-time coach, I wouldn't be able to do the TV stuff and the writing because I couldn't write about coaches or players that I'm coaching against or playing against. So I'm sort of stuck in this position where I'd quite like to coach. So I get my fix of coaching down at Maynard. But even now, last night, I'm conscious of the language I'm using. It's not mean I don't swear, because there are times to swear sometimes. I do think there's a time for a swear word.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that if people filmed my session last night or filmed the maths lesson I took, and the reality that at the moment all my maths lessons are filmed because we're on Zoom Teams and you're in there with 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, that you could shine a light on the stuff I do. And you might not agree with me, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't mind that. You don't have to agree with me, but you can't hold me to account, I hope, for inappropriate crossing line, bullying in any way, shape or form.
I do just want to ask one more question around that, and just be respectful of your time, of course. Now, there's a whole nother podcast about you as a rugby player, like you Rugby World Cup 2003, and being a part of that drop goal and that win is I'd love to go into that. But the question I want to ask is a fantastic video of you training with the England women's team, and I myself attack coach for the Wallaroos, the women Australian team, and I was very aware of what I saw from you with your coaching on the run, the little cues, the little adjustments, and you already touched on that earlier in the podcast. Is that why you got the nod to play for England, because of that amazing asset you had? And is that where you can see yourself going, is getting into the coaching stuff?
Why did Clive pick me? What I love about Clive is he picked players for the things they could do rather than what they couldn't do, and then got the coaches who were supposed to be in charge of the areas that you couldn't do to fix the things that you couldn't do. But I want him in the team because of what he could do. I hope that's not a Donald Rumsfeld riddle. But he picked me because I could attack and I could find space, and I would wait 4 or 5 phases, and I viewed rugby as a game of chess, and I worked out the probability, having played cards with my dad all my life, that the reality of him having a 7 of spades right now is pretty low compared to what I got in my hands. Even though I wasn't playing poker with him, we were playing German whist, Oh Hell, Scopa, all these games. We played Newmarket. So I'm sort of doing all that. I've lost track of the question. Bear with me going again. So what are we talking about?
About your skill set as a player.
So you guys said that's why I go on tangents and sometimes have to. But when I was in the old days, I would panic on TV. But that happens, and you've got to trust the fact that eventually your train of thought will come back, and you'll get back to the question when you're talking about something. You go off on a tangent. What you must never be embarrassed about is to go, I'm pretty sure what I've just made is a valid point, but I've actually forgotten what the question is. Just ask what's the question again?
Yeah.
Rather than try and fuddle it and go off on one and then talk complete nonsense. So anyway, game of chess, ability to see a game. Clive picked me for that. Most people said I couldn't defend. Right, Phil Larder, you're a defensive coach. Teach him how to defend. Now, as always in life, that's a complete putting me in a box rubbish. A, I probably wasn't as good an attacker as people thought. And B, I certainly wasn't as bad a defender as people thought I was, because I was, anyway. So that's what Clive was amazing at. But you're right, he picked me for what I could do, which was to see space. So when I went with the Roses, I've then had what I had inherently and worked on as a kid, which was my strength. And then I had 10 years at the top level being coached by some of the best defensive coaches to help me show me what I'm seeing in defence. So now I'm thinking, I know it's 10 years later since I played, but there are some basics in life. You want to get square, you want to get your hit square, you want to go forward. In defence, you want to get your spacings right. You don't want to give a prop 4 yards to cover. I'm outside, let me say, I'm outside Johnny Wilkinson. I can leave him 6-7 metres. Okay, I'll cover that space. Now I'm outside Jason Leonard, tuck in and need 2 metres. I'm not taking the mickey out of Jason Leonard by that. I'm looking at him because I know if I'm in a ruck, he'll stand over me. He'll stop me getting my head kicked in. So don't expose him out wide because you need him to look after you. So I've picked up enough of these things that are still relevant, and I do enough study to understand the old drift doesn't really exist anymore. Get 1 and 2 in, 3, that's king defender, go up, fly up. Everyone else just shut the space, go hard, but stay square. So I've watched enough to be able to stay relevant. And then I just understand I'm not going to get it right all the time. But when I'm out on the pitch with the Rose and Etta, just keep talking. Keep saying, and then I'll feed off Emily Scarrett, and Emily Scarrett will feed something into Katie Daly-McLean, and then suddenly Tash Hunt is there at scrum half, and she's round the corner, and you're just constantly feeding that in. So the Roses was an awesome experience for me, and it's also an understanding of how far women's rugby's come. Because I was from a club called Waterloo, where the first captain, Jill Burns, actually won the inaugural Women's World Cup before Silver Ferns took over and won 37 on the trot. And then finally England got over the line in 2014, and then normal order was resumed 3 years later. But we hope we can do a job on New Zealand in 2021.
That's right, yeah. Let's leave it there, man. We could go all day, but I really appreciate your time. It's been magic to chat, and I suppose just from me, admire what you're doing and the skill set you do have. And just to finish on that, I think one of the big impact, I think, for the women's game is players like yourself. It's the monkey see, monkey do effect, the effect that you can have just from getting into a training session can change the way a girl plays the game for the rest of her life. So I noticed that. But thanks very much for your time, Will. It's been a pleasure.
No, absolute pleasure. Give us a shout anytime. Look forward to catching up later on in the season.
Awesome. Thanks, Will.
Cheers, bud.